Here's Brody Brazil.
Well, this is going to be a real bummer of a video to make. Actually, I hope not, but honestly, it's guidelines, it's framework to help you figure out when to worry or not about the 2021-2022 MLB lockout. Started on the first day of December. Here we are in the beginning of February. Maybe there's been some progress made. We'll dive into that, but ultimately there's been no resolution, and time is ticking. Baseball season is right around the corner, and on that note, I want to help you out here with the big picture of dates to know. Now, it's always a Valentine's Day thing that pitchers and catchers get together. I mean, why would it not be? February 15th this year for most teams was the plan. Oh, no, is the plan or was the plan? And again, it varies by team. They're all operating on slightly different schedules, but 14th or 15th of February, we'll see if that date actually happens as scheduled. Then the next big date would be February 20th for position players to report, and the teams would play their first games February 27th. Now, that last date is the only one that's truly in ink, in black and white, because all the other dates, let's be very upfront, February 15th for pitchers and catchers, they're usually there by February 5th or 7th, and kind of the same thing with position players. They're usually there February 10th, and a lot of these players making their homes in Arizona or Florida, so they've already been there the entire time, a lot of them. They're not actually showing up anywhere. This is where they've always been. And quite honestly, this is also the hard part for players. They're aiming their preparations towards these dates, but also right now understanding that these dates might not happen and their preparations might be a little out of sync for whenever it does get underway. Big date to know out of all of those, but let's talk about the most important one, and specifically, let's be selfish, for the Oakland A's, opening game, March 31st, at home against the Angels. So that is about 55 days from now. I guess in a way, as much as we're talking about pressure and things needing to start on time and season's right around the corner, when you think about 55 days to get this right, that's still a lot of time to hopefully sort out the separation that remains. But let me also say we're kind of at that midway point of the entire lockout. From the day it started, December 1st, to March 31st, about 4 months, guess what? We are past the halfway point of 2+ months here. So only 55 days remaining before opening day across Major League Baseball. So good and bad news. Well, let's start with the good news. Talks are continuing, right? Nothing has been cut off. You do hear about a regular cadence of meetings. How these go, how productive they are, only the people inside truly know, because what you hear after the fact is one side saying, well, here's what we thought happened, and then the other side says, well, here's what we thought happened. It's a, he said, she said type situation. Nobody is actually a fly on the wall for these conversations. But I think another piece of good news is that these negotiations have not been heated yet. Now, not yet. Yet is important, and not heated is important. I say not heated because we've seen in the past with different sports and different labor issues, the two sides, the players and the owners, really lobbing grenades at each other, making it an ugly situation, name-calling, mocking. It has not, at least from what I've seen, it has not got that far yet this time around. Still might. I mean, we haven't got to really crunch time yet, but I think there is some encouragement in that nobody's promoting false hope. Nobody's, leaking things out poorly. And we kind of know the issues at hand, and we'll talk about that in a second too. And the good news is, I guess, there's still some time. What I mean by that is not so much for pitchers and catchers reporting, or even the opening game of spring training, which is in about 3+ weeks from right now, but kind of the fact that if you had to condense spring training, you could definitely do it. Let me be very clear with you here. Spring training as is, every year, we always say that was way too long. You could cut it in thirds, and you could probably lop off that last third of spring training. You don't need all those extra games. And sure, the only people, I should say, who really like and utilize those last games, the last, let's say, week and a half, are the coaches and the managers making ultimate player decisions, and front offices making ultimate player decisions. They want to get that full evaluation that they can on everybody. Otherwise, they would condense it. They would play everybody a little bit sooner, play them a little bit more often, and they would get right to the season. It's kind of like 4 weeks of preseason in the NFL. 4 weeks overall, might be that one last week, just kind of not purposeful for most people, but it helps teams make decisions. But again, the overall point here, you could condense spring training, and I think we'd be fine. We will get, if you're telling me that's the worst thing that's going to happen, that's not a problem at all. And I also think there's good news in that pressure does exist on both sides to get this done. They realize the imagery here. They realize how they look. They realize that they both have a lot to gain if they actually get an agreement done here. So I do think there is pressure to get this right. There's not one or both sides saying, screw it. If we don't do it, whatever. We're standing our ground. I don't think you have that. Okay, the bad news. There are multiple issues here, and there are multiple deep issues here. One of the issues at the forefront is the whole situation of a cap. Is it a soft cap like it's been where teams can go over and then they can pay a luxury tax? Or are they going to tighten that soft cap? Are they going to make it more firm? Are they going to go with a hard cap? Are they going to go with a full cap where it's a top dollar limit and also a salary cap floor that every team has to spend? There are so many things up in the air. So it's multiple issues. It's deep issues. I guess I could have put on here. It's difficult issues, right? These are things that are not settled overnight. There's a lot of complexity to it. I'm not saying they can't get it done quickly. I'm just saying that there's a lot of things that take a lot of consideration. This is not an easy A or B situation. There's 26 letters, or how many are there? 27. There's a lot of choices here on the table and a lot of different options and ways to go. So that does kind of complicate things. It furthers too many discussions maybe. Other bad news is bad optics. Like the fact that it's already gone on this long, I think people are okay with that. But I do have to tell you that as the month of February continues, and then as soon as that info comes out, I just told you I'm okay with spring training getting condensed. But the moment MLB has to come out and say, we are officially postponing the start of spring training, you're going to get, it's going to be, so terrible, all that stuff, right? You're going to get all that. It's not warranted, but bad optics come with situations like this. And then last but not least, 2 months. I'm not talking about the next 2 months until opening day. I'm talking about what has been happening. And I realize the holidays happened in December. And then people are kind of slow to get into things in January. But literally, this is some people's jobs and their livelihood. This is a lot of livelihoods to figure out, what are we going to do? You've had 2 months. You telling me in 2 months you couldn't hash some of these things out? Couldn't put a little bit more pressure so that you don't arrive like a college student who forgot to study for the exam and now it's scrambling and throwing stuff on the table? And I'm not saying that that's how they're approaching this. I'm just saying that time has been ticking and you knew this was going to happen, and what progress has been made in 2 months. Maybe some, but certainly none that's been, officially documented or makes the situation seem a whole lot better. So now we've got to the most important part. This is why you're watching the video. When to worry. If you're worried about Major League Baseball having a full spring training, I'm going to tell you to start worrying right about now, because I truly feel like that's in jeopardy. Gut instinct is that spring training is likely not going to start on time, which again, I'm telling you, not a problem. If you start minimizing it to 3 weeks or so, that's when you run into troubles. And that's my whole point here in saying that the season on schedule, I'm talking about opening day. When to worry about opening day? I know others have said different dates in March. I'm going to go with March 1st. I think that's the date to really start worrying about if there's not something lined up. Now you're talking about 3 weeks approximately to get everybody to Arizona and Florida, to get them worked out, to get some games in. You remember in 2020, did they do that second spring training for 23 or 4 days? And they said that felt really, really rushed. Now, granted, our world was in a lot different situation back then. Things were not normal to any means, but 20-something days, 23 days felt rushed. So March 1st for me is when things have to be completed. If they're not done by March 1st, for me, that's when you start worrying about the regular season. So hopefully some of that helped. Again, I hate to be a downer on all this. I'm just trying to help you out with what I see, what I understand, and what I know. If you liked this video, and I don't mean the topics of it, maybe if you like the presentation, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to my channel. If you haven't already, I would greatly appreciate that. Let me know what you think about this whole situation in the comments section below. Be well, and I'll see you next time.